So hopefully you see Incab America 2022 end of year review.
Yes, sir.
Yay. Okay, well, let me preface this by saying this might be my last broadcast. As I mentioned, we have bad weather coming in, and so it could turn into a survival situation. We'll see. Here we go. Here's
Well, that
what we
was dramatic.
Here's what we see in 2022, or what we achieved in 2022, rather. We basically hit 30 million, which was our target, and which represented about 50% growth. And new orders received, we were at 37 million. We blew past our target there, but again, strong growth compared to what we did in 2021. The plan for 2023 is 45 million. So another year of 50%-ish growth. Likewise for new orders received, 45 million. So strong growth, no matter how you look at it. So where are things as we start off in 2023? Here's our latest cost information for your benefit. On material cost of fiber prices, we have not had a fiber price increase since the second quarter of last year. Corning, however, did tell us to expect a 3% increase this first quarter, but they haven't actually pulled the trigger on that. I don't know if they will, meaning there's a possibility they won't. If I had to bet, I bet they would. They will, but you can make an argument that the market worldwide for fiber is actually a little bit soft. However, the market here in the United States is very strong. We're actually like the strongest in the world right now. So which is stronger? I don't know, but if I had to bet, I would bet that the fact that the market in the US is so strong means they will pull the trigger on that price increase. Time will tell. January last year to January this year, for us, steel is down about 10% and still trending down. In contrast, aluminum is up a little bit and is still trending up. Aramid and polyethylene, we've seen no price increases since the third quarter of last year. Don't expect anything further for aramid. Polyethylene, thought maybe it would start going down, but our suppliers keep ducking our questions about that. And one day gas is down and the next day gas is up. So it beats me. We'll see. There should be some correlation with oil prices, but the truth is we're not seeing that. Our supply chain right now, knock on wood, is stable. We've had some issues with ACS wire and tubes, but ACS wire in particular has cleared up now, and we're back on track with it basically. And OPGW tubes, pretty much we're back on track there. But in any case, we're working to further reinforce our supply chain for these critical materials. More on this, especially the tubes, as we continue through the presentation. As far as our delivery times right now, for OPGW, I'm very sorry to say that we are at 26 to 28 weeks, and I don't see that getting any better anytime soon. We do have a second strander on order, and I'll talk about that more later. But on balance, I'm just not feeling very confident that this is going to get better. For ADSS and dielectric cables, we're currently a little bit better, 20 to 22 weeks. And I was hoping that this would get better, but later in the presentation, you'll see a big reason why it might not get better. As I say, we'll talk about it more as we continue on. Our on-time delivery through the end of 2022 stood at 86%. Not great, not bad, especially considering what I hear in our industry in general. But I'd like to see this well above 90%. We do take it seriously. We're doing our best, and when we're late, we at least notify customers. And when we're late, 80% of the time, we're late by only a week. But it's still an area where we can improve on, and we're working in that towards that end. What are our evil competitors up to? Well, AFL just continues to have kind of this corporate bipolar disorder, as I've called it before. Very high, very low on both lead time and price. Some of their loyal customers say they're just doing great, with the subtext of, we're not interested in working with Incab. Other customers, in contrast, say that AFL is doing terrible and are very receptive to working with Incab. So you can I can only speculate why they're so seemingly inconsistent. Prysmian for OPGW, they are all but gone. Don't know why, but I'll take it. For ADSS and dielectric cable, we are very competitive against Prysmian on ADSS and regular duct type dielectric cable, not so much against them on armored cable. Working to improve that. We'll talk about that later. Do have an interesting story to tell you, though, and that's that we won an order recently for 400,000 feet of 288 fiber armored cable that we had lost to Prysmian, as in Prysmian had the purchase order in their hands, but then they went to the customer, to their credit, and told them, sorry, we can't guarantee Corning fiber. So at least they were honest about that. And so the customer ended up canceling the PO and placed it with us. But very interesting that Prysmian is having problems with Corning fiber. That may be another entry point for us on some opportunities. OFS, I usually talk about SFPOC when I talk about OFS because they're part of the Furukawa group, but today I'm going to save it for the next slide. I will talk about their US operation for ADSS and dielectric cable. They are still not quoting new business. And in fact, they are actually continuing to load shed electric utility customers, which is helping us quite a lot. We appreciate that, although they do take care of some selected customers. More about the competition. So Sterlite, we've talked about before. They have what they claim is a new factory in South Carolina. Is it really a factory or a warehouse? The truth is, I don't know. Might be a warehouse that's in the process of becoming a factory. I don't know. When it comes to Sterlite, think Chinese level pricing with Chinese level quality, service, and support. And in fact, they've already gone sideways with a few of their US customers. So we'll see what happens with them. SFPOC, they have bid on a couple of larger transmission projects in the West. They are obviously still trying to keep their blanket contract with American Electric Power, but otherwise they're pretty quiet. They don't sing it. They certainly are not out there beating the bushes like we are to try to drum up new business. And then in a major piece of news, CommScope has recently told a customer that they're not accepting new purchase orders, which if that's really generally true, that's huge news. And this could be the main reason why our lead times don't improve. If we get swamped by market demand because CommScope has created a hole in the marketplace, it may mean that our lead times don't get any better like we had hoped. Now we'll talk about news from each of our regions. First up is your region, and Tony will talk about what's going on in the East.
Good afternoon. My contribution this year to the 45 million is going to be 16 million. How are we gonna get there? Well, we're gonna get there with y'all's help. Current blankets that we have in the east are FPNL, PPL, Eversource, First Energy, GTC, and Power South. We're still waiting on Wesco PSENG to see how that turned out. We may have another one to add to this, and looking to add some more blankets for 2023 is Sante Cooper, AEP, First Energy. There's a couple more not on there. Hopefully we can get things rolling with Avangrid, and we also are working with Border States for ATC, and that's it. So whatever y'all can do to help me out, that'll be great.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Next up, news from the West with Dan.
Hi, guys. We continue, believe it or not, we continue to make progress in the West. We are bidding on several projects. We're adding customers, not at a super rate, but we are adding them. Our name is getting out there. We're getting orders from key customers like Pacific Corp. We've got good relationships with Berkshire Hathaway. One of the things that's going to be a credit to us this year is the fact that we're going to have enough Corning fiber to satisfy the requirements that we have to make our sales objectives. So we're positive about that. We're going to have a new building, and it's going to be a real showplace for the industry. And we're proud of that. And we'll bring customers in and give them the boost that we think and the confidence in us to use Incab in the future. One of the things we talked about this morning with the vendor at rep, is that they're struggling a lot with the idea that, with the facts that conductors are 76 weeks out, transformers are 90 weeks out, trying to, make sales with that kind of obstacles is very difficult, very, very difficult. And a lot of the projects are seriously being held up. But we're going to continue at this and continue to be successful. It's just going very slow right now. Thank you.
Hey, Dan, just on that point, are you seeing some of your utility customers, I guess even throughout the country, starting to maybe abandon a full transmission line with conductors and maybe just going after OPGW replacement projects so they can get up their capital spend?
Well, some of these projects now have been going on for 12 years. And, they've been in the planning and permitting stages, and I'm sure that they've been looking at supply chain, during that process. And I don't know at what point do they start ordering conductor and cable, transformers, structures. But right now we've seen some of these projects move forward and some of them are just stalled. And I don't know what the answer that's going to be in the near term, but I would suspect that it's going to involve offshore suppliers to some degree.
So I would say to build on what Dan's saying, a little bit more directly, I would say no. We've not seen that, Dave. Instead, what I'm hearing is from a few of our reps that are not like Southwire reps or that they've had customers come to them and say, can you find a conductor company? I forget which of our reps, but one of them, or which utility it was, but there's some utility that started buying from, I may not be pronouncing this correct, but Midal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because they can't get conductor from General Cable or Southwire or Naring, I suppose. And so like Dan says, that they're considering offshore sources because they can't get what they need.
Right, right.
Yeah,
No,
if
I mean,
it's-
when you put up your 86% on time rate, me and Dan started laughing over here. So I don't want to I don't want to speak of my illustrious conductor manufacturer, but let's just say you're doing quite a bit better, Mike.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment and,
You should.
but, like I say, I'm not satisfied with that, but, I understand, so.
Well, the
Right.
management in our company made a seriously good move when they decided to get into the telecom business and fiber to the home. That gives us that gives us sales avenue or a market for us to generate sales dollars to support our business. We're lucky enough to have reps like you with relationships at Eversource, and they're still doing projects. But out west, it's a different animal.
Yeah, the one thing that
It's
was
so
able to
spread
do,
out.
yeah, with Eversource, there's a lot to it, but we put out our lead time way back when, when it was at 36, we were kind of saying 52. And so
Yeah.
they're basing it around then. So we kind of, they're getting their cable, not exactly when they want it, but it's not disastrous right now. And they do have stuff coming in throughout the spring and into the summer. So
Yeah.
after that, I'm not sure. I mean, they're really upset with Southwire, whether they can get it from someone else. I don't know if General's going to come through for them. I keep warning them. I'm like, you think Southwire's bad? Wait till you move to someone else,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, to build on your point, the sense I have is that a lot of utilities are not satisfied with Southwire, but General Cable / Prysmian seems to be worse to deal with, and then Naring, don't even talk about.
Yeah, they don't seem to have the bandwidth at Nearing, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're not that big of operation either.
Right.
Well, yeah, they're not big, but they don't even seem to be like halfway competent.
Mm.
Connex is part of Naring, and we've tried to buy wire from Connex and have basically given up. But I mean, they don't respond, have yet to respond to us in a halfway competent manner, much less totally competent. So anyway, difficult situation in the market. Like Dan says, I think it makes many utilities more receptive to offshore suppliers that maybe a year or two ago they wouldn't have even considered.
No, it's happening.
Frustrating is the fact that we've built a lot of wind farms and solar farms, and we have yet to get that energy to the grid for everybody to share. And there's a bunch of money out there that are willing to pay for that, but we just cannot get the materials.
Mm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike. Apologize.
No, it's fine, Dan. So, well, let's keep things moving. So next up is news from broadband with Tim.
All right, yeah. Good afternoon, guys. So yeah, it was a good year for us, obviously overall as a company, but on the broadband side, saw a lot of good things happen. I'd mentioned on our last meeting, we'd added a couple stocking distributors, one in Missouri and one up in the Pacific Northwest. Right, they're bringing in general stock. Another distributor that I've been focusing on for a while is Irby, but it's been their telecom group that's out of Jonesboro, Arkansas. So that particular group within Irby, they do full turnkey solutions for fiber to the home build. So they're doing the engineering, doing the building, the construction, but also the procuring the material as well. So we'd gotten a couple orders from them for some figure eight cable, a year and a half or so ago. But just right at the beginning of this year, they placed a nice $4 million PO for us for ADSS for a couple of their fiber to the home projects in Mississippi. So obviously, a great PO to get, but then I recently, actually, I guess just last 2 weeks ago, found out that they are going to be looking to buy more ADSS because one, so they're a big Corning shop. They prefer Corning over anything else from a glass standpoint. So they had been buying from AFL and Prysmian, but they told us that AFL lately has been moving away from quoting Corning and has been quoting Fujikura, but also Draka, which sounds very odd. I haven't heard this from anybody else yet, so I've been kind of trying to pry around and see if I can hear anything from anybody else to, I guess confirm that. But it does seem at least that AFL is trying to maybe push some customers away from Corning, in which the Buckeye Electric was the 288 armored that Mike mentioned, right? Very similar thing. So it looks like Prysmian and AFL, whether or not they didn't get an increase from Corning for their allocation this year. I did hear from a distributor that he had heard that Prysmian had their Corning allocation reduced this year. So generally speaking, right, I mean, if that, there's a lot of, I guess, enough smoke coming from, from the Corning glass perspective and other manufacturers that it looks like that we really could be at an even more of an advantage than we have been just from a Corning glass availability. One thing I'll touch on really quick with Sterlite that Mike was talking about quality. So I just got done with a meeting here with a guy that was working on, just within the last year, was up in northern Michigan with actually a mutual contact of ours. They bought Sterlite cable, and this enclosure used grommets that are sized specifically for a particular outer diameter. They couldn't get the cable to seal around the grommet. He took a piece of the Sterlite cable, and in a 1 meter span, he had 4 different ODs. So just to give you guys an idea, when we talk about Sterlite not being good quality, there you go. They also had issues with the buffer tube slitting, basically just breaking apart. And he said, you could be in a 9-inch dome enclosure and do a nice big loop, and it would just break apart. So just FYI, if you hear any of your customers talking about Sterlite, we need to have a little conversation with them about quality. They're going to be dirt cheap, but again, that's going to come with quality issues. So outside of the ADSS product line, we sold $6.3 million in non-ADSS black jacket products. So armor cable, duct cable, drop cable, our micro cables, we call it blown in. I expect to see a big jump in these cables because the awesome part to me is we did 6.3 million, and that's with most of those cables being priced anywhere from 25 to 40% above market, above where the market is on price. But the demand and the availability played a big part in that. Now, going back to this Buckeye Electric and this 288, the other thing that helped us out there was when Prysmian won that order, they were at $2.07 a foot. We quoted at $2.65. We went back, worked with the customer on some delivery things to help buy ourselves some time, and we quoted them on domestic pricing, and we came in at $1.97. So obviously, we don't want to be the lowest price, but what this is going to do, though, is this is going to give us a lot more control of controlling where we are from a pricing standpoint against the market. And so this is where you guys could help out as y'all are talking to your customers. If you have anybody that's buying any type of cable, if you can get some pricing feedback for us, that would help a lot. Because again, we don't want to be the lowest price, but if we are going to be one of the only manufacturers outside of Corning to have Corning glass availability, we can kind of mess with the pricing and find a sweet spot and find what that ideal premium is for us to charge. So any kind of market intel you guys can get would be a huge help. Again, especially as we start transitioning production over here, and help us kind of find a better price point. And then lastly, from a fiber to the home standpoint, we had quite a few customers that were going into phase 2 or phase 3 of different projects. So we had Blue Ridge in South Carolina. They were our largest fiber to the home customer last year. They've already placed another order, and they've been getting deliveries for year 2 of their project. Habersham EMC is a co-op up in Northeast Georgia. They've placed a couple of orders, and they've got a 400+ mile project coming up that we're going to be supplying the cable to them as well. And then the last one is Lafayette Utilities in Louisiana. The cool thing about that one is they're a municipality, so they've got to go out to bid, but they wrote the spec around us, pretty much eliminating most of our competition. And in fact, on this last bid that just went out that we have won, we're just waiting on the PO from the distributor. It's about 1.5 million. We went up against Corning on that. It was just us and Corning because we were the only two that could meet their specs. But again, they worked with us on delivery and kind of pushing the delivery out later into the year so we could price domestic pricing, and we were able to beat up Corning straight up. So again, just from a reputation standpoint, we've got a lot of customers now that we can say have been buying our cable and deploying our cable for a couple years. So just a big plus for me from a credibility and a reference standpoint that we can point to other customers we're trying to sell to. So that's all I got for now.
I just want to comment on the Starlight cable. I don't know how you get 4 different diameters and only a meter. That's amazing. Although I can point out that if it was ADSS, from a theoretical standpoint, it should be better from a aeolian vibration standpoint. Should do a lot to make your cable self anti-aeolian vibration.
There you go.
Well, I think they're using the Brahma bulls for the Caterpillar pulling the cable through the jacket line.
Well, there you
And
go.
they are not as well synced as some of the electric components.
That could be.
Yeah. So Greg, who just left Micah, he said he looked at the cable and he could visually see the differences in the outer diameter.
That's amazing.
It's fantastic.
For us.
Exactly.
Okay.
Of course,
All right, let's keep going. Leo, you're up to talk about what's going on internationally.
By the way, Mike, with this idea, they can patent this design. Well,
yes, they could patent it as aeolian vibration.
Okay, how you doing? Let me explain a little bit how the minor leaks against the major leaks I'm working with. By the way, especially Latin America is a region that is very price oriented market. So our strategy in the region is especially to develop good relationship with guys, with the companies that are looking to buy from a quality source. That's why we try to target different markets. And as you can see in the slide, for example, in Ecuador and Argentina, we have been developing some projects, especially in the oil and gas industry. We have customers like Shell in Petroecuador in Ecuador, which is the second largest oil company in Ecuador. But also we target industry like the mining and in Peru, which is very stable. That the economy there is very strong. Unfortunately, now the Peruvian political situation is kind of constrained or complicated. So now the projects there are on hold. We hopefully hope that this will be solved soon. So in the Caribbean, we're still developing projects in Curacao. One of our, maybe the first, at least on my side, customer Digicel is still placing orders. One of the important thing that happening is like once the customer use the cable and use Incab as a customer service, our close relationship with them, they really fell in love. So it's been kind of key for us. Also, now we're discussing a blanket contract in Costa Rica that at least they will leverage to major leagues too. On the other hand, we also developed some projects for on some power utilities for sensing cables or using the existing OPGW as a sensing media. So they can have surveillance of different factors in the line. So we have very interesting customer like Electrosur ISA, which is the largest um, transmission company in South America. Also still working with ICE in Costa Rica. They are in love with us, with Incab. But also we have been developing some good relationship with EPR, which is one of the, or is the company who manage the interconnection between the all countries in Central America. There is a big transmission line who crossed from Panama to Guatemala, passing by different countries like Costa Rica, Honduras, El Salvador. Basically that, close relationship and customer support. Like,
Okay, thanks, Leah. We'll keep moving. So other things that we did in 2022, the theme is that we kept investing in our plant property and our people too. So you guys knew about the ownership and leadership changes. Those are complete. You can also find now a website for ICG, who is our new parent company, owning 90% of us, and then the 10% still owned by me. ICG in turn is 70% owned by a German guy and 25%, 75% owned by a German guy and 25% owned by me. But anyway, ICG has its own website now and comes up on a D&B report, so customers can check that entity out. We're working to make some improvements there, but it's there. We added a lot of new faces in 2022. A couple of key people that we added were Randy Hightower as our accounting controller, soon to be like a CFO, and Miosha Woods as our HR manager. And on the floor, we added 22 new employees, so 22 and 22, you might say, but in 23, it'll be 31, not 23. So we're adding even more. Big challenge, I'm sure you hear this from some of your other principals, is finding good people to work production. But we're managing that challenge pretty well, I think. Excuse my occasional coughing fits. So you will recall that last year we told you we were getting a third building, and we did in fact get a third building. Unfortunately, things did not go as well as we had hoped. We have only two problems with that building. One is we can't get the power we need, and the second problem is we can't get the air conditioning we need. Otherwise, it's a great building. A little bit of a joke there. You don't want to be making fiber optic cable in July in Texas when it's 110 outside. So both are very important. Encore, who's one of our best customers, unfortunately told us that getting a transformer so we could upgrade the power was only going to take 37 weeks. And if you say, well, that's not so bad, yeah, you're not the first of our reps to make exactly that comment, but it still screws us over. We were trying to figure out how we could work around that. Maybe we only move some of our equipment, enough that the existing capacity would suffice for a while. But we still were left with the air conditioning problem. Years ago, just 3 years ago, if you wanted to air condition your building, you went out and bought some units and had them installed and no big deal. But in 2022, suddenly this is a problem, and you have the city and the state and the federal government all piling on with all kinds of ridiculous requirements about you have to do this and you have to do that, and we basically fell into permitting hell. So while we were continuing to try to work around that and get things installed as quickly as we could with no end in sight for any of it, quite frankly, we had the opportunity, a building kind of fell in our laps that already has the power that we need, already has air conditioning, and has extra room, which would give us room for growth. So we jumped on that building, and any moment now, I could have the final lease agreement. We've agreed on all the terms and everything. We're just waiting on the lawyers to finish the revised lease agreement, and I will sign it. And by the end of the year, we will move all of our operations to this facility, which is in Grapevine. about 15 minutes north of where we were, or where we are now. And the building, you'll see a picture of it later. It's going to up our game because the building has a lot more curb appeal than our existing locations, and it has all these other benefits. So that's coming soon. We plan to stay on offense in 2023. We have all of the the equipment listed at this first bullet point. We have all of this already on hand. We are just waiting to get it installed somewhere. We have a fiber coloring line because when you get bare fiber, the first thing you need to do is color it. Then you got to put it in a plastic tube. We got one of those. Then you got to take those plastic tubes and strand them into a core, what's called a cabling line. We got one of those. Then you got to put a jacket on it and add strength. We already have one of those, but we're getting a second one optimized for smaller cables, including drop cables. And we also got an armoring line. So that's how we're going to fix our price competitiveness against Prysmian and others for that type of product, as we can do our own armoring here. We also have 2 new wire rewinders. They're actually already up and running in our original location. Gives us an opportunity to work the bugs out before the new strander shows up. Speaking of the new strander, it's still supposed to ship in March, which puts us getting it into actual production operations in late July or early August. And we have a metal tubing line to make the stainless steel tube. So we'll be independent for making those. It's supposed to ship in February and should be operational by June. So what do these investments mean? Well, it means we'll be 100% independent for dielectric cables. You know, I told you that plan last year. We're well on our way to achieving that. 85% for OPGW because we still won't have the capability to make aluminum pipe. So the aluminum pipe with plastic buffer tubes, so our type AP design, we're relying upon a supplier in Europe, actually a pair of suppliers in Europe, to make that for us. That will come later, like maybe next year, we'll get that done. But 85% of the OPGW that we make is either the type S, the type C, or the type CA, and we'll be able to do that here.
So Mike, a dumb question. That you're installing that in the existing location, but you're not going to install the fiber line until you get the new location all ready for it. Is that correct?
Not quite. So
okay.
Here's what we're going to do. So the building, it was already being renovated, and the agreement that we have with them is that we'll be able to start moving our equipment in around July 15th, plus or minus a day. What we will do is initially what we're going to do is construct the 2 foundations, because that's dirty, messy work. You have to cut the floor, that's dirty and messy, and then you got to dig out the dirt, and that's more dirty and messier. When we did the foundation in our original building, we took out 29 truckloads of dirt. So a lot of dirt will come out of that building, and obviously that's a dirty process. So we want to do that first and have both foundations ready. So about the time the new strander arrives, its foundation should be ready and we will get it up and running. We will not take down our existing strander until the new strander is up and running and producing cable. Unfortunately, that's going to be in July or August, and that's our peak season. So for a while, we're going to go ahead and leave our existing strander where it is and keep running it where it is. And around December of this year or January of 2024 is when we will move it to the new building. All the other processes, as soon as we've got the foundation work completed, we will start setting those up immediately. And this equipment here is all pretty much bolt to the floor. So its installation should go pretty fast. We'll go ahead and do things, you know, like run the run the electrical stuff and all that while the foundation work is going, but we'll get this equipment up and running pretty quickly. I think we'll be in production up there in April. That's still aggressive. Maybe it falls into March, but real darn soon. Good. Does that help answer your
No, that's
question?
great. Yeah, thanks. Do you expect that to have any impact on your lead times?
Yes, in theory, assuming we don't get swamped by market demand. As I mentioned here, excuse me, it'll improve our cost structure. It should improve our lead times. But, because of CommScope, kind of dropping out of the market and Prysmian telling people can't supply Corning fiber, it could be that so much demand comes our way that it swamps our ability to improve our lead times. We book up.
Sure.
So we'll
Yep.
see.
I can see you get all
any-
choked up about that.
I am. It's
Yeah.
it breaks my heart. But like Doritos, we'll go buy more equipment so that we can make more.
Gotcha.
We have plans there. Tony keeps trying to get me to go ahead and buy a third strander. And I'm open to that. So we'll see. We are a small company, and the leadership structure is such that we can make decisions like that pretty quickly. Need to make a business case for it, which today's environment makes surprisingly easy, but in any event. So what these investments mean, better cost, better lead time, average production capacity, about 5 to 6 million feet of all cable types per month. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, depending upon the product mix that we're working on. So good to go. Any more questions on this? Okay. So in the marketplace, you're going to still see us out there like we've been. Here on the left are the major trade shows that we're going to be supporting in 2023. Plus, there are some smaller and regional events that we'll be supporting. The first big one is Tech Advantage in early March. We'll be there. If you're there, come by and see us. We'll be continuing our webinar series. So I did one last week, very well attended. We had 56 people, I think, is how many people actually attended. And this was OPGW 101, so it was a repeat. But I go through these and look to see if they need to be updated or if they can be improved. And what you're going to see this year is a mix, about half encore performances, as we say, and about half new topics. So those have been very popular. And 56 people. I mean, back in my Brugg days, if I was traveling with Dave, if we got half a dozen people, I felt great. And now I'm getting on basically an order of magnitude above that regularly. So it's cool. It's been effective. And then here's a picture of that new Grapevine facility. So, and then my office will be this one right here. So come out and look for me. And that's my presentation for today. So
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Now we're going to turn it over to our sales group and let us know what you got in the works. What's your goals and plans for 23, and what can we do to help you?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I think you guys and Tony, hit the nail right on the head there.
Yeah.
It's going to be consistent growth out of Eversource. I don't see that ending. Talk about a relationship, man. That was that was a bounce back and a half.
yeah.
But I mean, it's gotten to the point now, and Tony's heard it firsthand, that Eversource just wants to do business with us again. pretty much throwing AFL right out the door. So, you know, the lead times scare me a little bit, but as long as they know what they are and we're consistent, we're going to be okay. But in the short term, you know, I think they are keeping some of the existing orders with AFL, turning over where they can to us, you know, where they have fall construction lined up. But I don't see that ending anytime soon. You know, they still have a lot going on right now with maintenance. And they also have a lot going on with replacing old lattice structures. So they're replacing lattice with tubular. So they're going out, and that's going to be their work for about the next, you know, 3 to 5 years. So you know, I would consider that one to be strong. I can let Dan talk about Avangrid and National Grid, but you know, the other big one for me is Velco. They are talking about doing a project. I'm going to be going up there in a couple weeks. So, Mike, I know you know Bill McNamara up there.
Yeah.
So I'll be seeing him. That's, I think it's like the 22nd or 23rd or something like that. So we're sitting down. So they're talking about going out and replacing first generation fiber. So that's something that might be coming up in the works. I mean, I don't think anything to break the bank, but still it would be good incremental business for us as well. So
Great.
those are kind of two big things there. Hopefully they can hear you. Might
Yeah.
want to switch spots.
Yeah, you want to switch?
Yes.
All right. Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, Dan.
Good.
Keep looking up here. Yeah, so I mean, kind of good setup years last year for National Grid and Avangrid. We're gonna run on the Avangrid side, we have to run engineering and procurement kind of parallel to each other. And Tony and I have been working on setting up those meetings. In National Grid, we had some turnover in procurement, but doesn't really scare me. It actually probably helps us. The gentleman who was there was kicking the door open for the Chinese and played some ridiculous games. So pretty confident we can get that kind of settled with Justin now. As he's in his new role, only a couple months here, so we got to get that going. And then really the name of the game at National Grid is kind of what we're doing on Thursday, which is making sure support the hell out of them, get them a level of comfort. You know, they're New Englanders, so, and I am too. You know, we don't really trust anyone, so you got to kind of build up that trust over X amount of time. But we'll get there. I think it's very, very bullish for both of them. I don't really see the biggest hurdle we had at Avangrid is kind of out the door with their perception of with our ties to Russia and Del Thomas's kind of inability to look past that. So I'm not overly worried about either of them. It's just a matter of kind of next step. And the only other hurdle for us at National Grid would be the type test is getting down to what should be the new facility here coming up with Brian Reynolds over in standards to formalize the approval of us. You know, they have us on their system and we're still not formally approved, but that's, you know, National Grid in a nutshell. And then over with kind of Tim's on Tim's side of things, actually, and I'll give Dan all the credit. He set up a great meeting with Telecom up in New York. Was that two weeks ago, Danny? Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yes, just trying to get us back in the door there with those folks, and do kind of intro to Incab, so to speak. So I expect in the next 6 to 12 months that kind of pick up. They're going to be doing some build outs over the next couple of years, but I don't know how well they knew us up there. So, but yeah, that's the long and short of kind of what I see 23 for. It's slow and steady, but I do think this is going to be a much better year for us.
Has Mike met Dan or Dan Berg met Dan Tierney? This is the first time they're seeing him.
I think Dan, have you met everyone? At some point, I think you and Tony have talked.
Yeah,
but...
no, I haven't met everybody yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm Dan Tierney, everybody. I'm covering. I'm in New York. I'm Mark Andrews' replacement for power sales. For those that don't know me yet, but I'll be covering and working with Dan Comboy on Avangrid and National Grid.
Yeah, Dan's whole family and cousins and everybody, I think, works for National Grid.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole family tree. So,
It's true.
yeah.
Y'all have added Groton Utilities as a new customer for us this last year too. They're located in southeastern Connecticut.
Joel. Yeah, that
That was Joel.
Rod. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Joel
Dan,
must
do
be-
your relatives like you?
For the most part, yeah, I'm pretty good terms. Yeah.
Oh, they're upstate New York. Everyone's nice up there. You know?
Yeah, right.
So I will take an opportunity to comment on the national grid situation. So
Yep.
for Dan and Dan. So we've actually got a pretty good technical capability as a company for dealing with field problems. Christian and Tony and Tim have all gone out to the field, so it's not just me anymore taking care of things like that. So you're going to be in good hands if Christian comes out, or this is OPGW, so probably Tim won't go, but Christian or Tony or whoever. Inside, we have a guy, Dimitri Giebert, and he's our quality manager, and he's quite good too. So we
Yeah,
have
no,
some
and
depth on that.
I'm not overly worried about, you know, the conversations we had. Honestly, they're a creature of habit over there. You know, it's been AFL for a while here, and you know, unfortunately, the way we had to get in the door was, you know, it is what it was. You know, we had to go through procurement, and that probably set us back a little bit on the engineering side. But I think the responsiveness, and then Rima, who's the engineer on the job, she's awesome. So is Jeff. So I'm not too bent out of shape. I think we're probably in good hands. So. Yeah, just stay flexible, stay understanding with them.
Yeah.
And then the other portion of that I should add is, you know, traditionally I try to, you know, make sure I hold my breath when I walk past procurement because I don't like dealing with them. But the grid folks aren't too bad. We've got a pretty good relationship with them from really the senior director down. So we're getting to a point of, you know, once we get approved, I'm going to push them pretty hard to try to formalize a contract and stop the 3 bids and a buy. You know, again, just they've got a bunch of new folks there that are scrambling to understand what the hell they're doing. But Justin's a younger dude. He kind of gets it, and I think he's open to it. So we'll get there. It's just I think the hardest part is behind us.
Okay, cool.
I guess I'm up. So yeah, we're getting orders from PPL. They're the most active. Our Chinese friends are still pretty strong there. Apparently, they're one of the accounts, Mike, that they're focusing on because they're servicing them fairly well. I mean, they're giving them competitive prices, and the feedback I'm getting is that they're giving them like 12 to 14 week lead times, which just blows me away. I don't know if that even sounds reasonable. I don't know how they do that unless they're somehow or another, you know, stocking it or getting building things on the come before they actually get an order. So still trying to peel that onion a little bit, but you know, we're getting some share of business, but not as much as I'd like, or I think as much as we could. As far as Exelon companies are concerned, AFL seems to have those guys locked up, and they seem to be, again, servicing them satisfactorily. So it's been tough to kind of bust in there. Three different influences there. Pico and BG&E kind of operate on their own, and then PHI kind of works as a group. But AFL treats all of Exelon, as far as I can tell, and you know, don't have any visibility to what's going on out at ComEd. They seem to service them pretty well, and it's just tough getting even an opportunity for anything outside of AFL. You know, they've got a number of different SKUs. They keep spares of many of them, and that's kind of been a barrier of entry as well. So I don't know if are you doing anything out at ComEd? Have you had any success out there that we might be able to parlay into?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Dave Georgson's been trying to work that, but Prismium's in there, and they use the ribbon cable and everything, and it's been a challenge to get in there.
Yeah. So, but we're plugging away. And PHI has a new guy. So we're successful with them on transmission engineering. Unfortunately, the fiber side of it, transmission engineers will spec it out, but they're not responsible for the standards on fiber. So it's the communications group. And key guy for PHI is a new young engineer. His name is Vito Farina, and he's out of Atlantic Electric. So got some calls into him to see if we can get in and, you know, talk with him. And the challenge is the old guard is retired, but they've come back as consultants, and the new guys keep on referring to them, and you know, they don't have an appetite for change. So but we'll keep plugging away with those guys. And then on Tim's side of things, you know, Tim, you were asking about Delaware Co-op. They're doing, not Delaware Co-op. I think you were asking about Chop Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So they do have some active fiber projects going on, and Annixter really covers those guys very, very well. And they've got the contract to provide all the fiber. They worked with Prismium to get the business, so they're reluctant to, you know, if they have a problem, they've committed that they'll come to us to see if we can bail them out or to give us an opportunity at the business. But right now, Prismium is serving that business pretty well, and you know, they're just reluctant to kind of stick it to Prismium since they went to that dance together with them. So, but we have a good relationship with Annixter, you know, and they buy, believe it or not, they buy a lot of Southwire from us in spite of the service, the poor service levels there. So, you know, if there's an opportunity with those guys, we'll get one.
So what's the latest at Southwire, Brian? What are they, how long do you think this supply problem they're gonna have is gonna continue?
Dan, I'll tell you what, our customers ask us that question, and you know, we don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
they keep on booking. They tell us they keep, you know, they keep raising prices, increasing lead times, and booking more business than they can ship. And now they're going to shut down on the transmission side of things. They're going to shut down part of the factory to reorganize it, you know, rearrange it, add more stranding equipment, and that's going to happen this summer. So that's, you know, they've already built that into their lead times. They're quoting 76-week lead times on things.
yeah, I see
And
where
they're
they're going to want to expand their building down there.
Yeah, they just opened their new copper mill. That was,
Yeah.
I mean, they're investing in the business. They're putting $1 billion worth of investment into the business. And new equipment, new machinery. Some of that's direct, you know, acquisition and whatnot. But they're spending some money. The thing that scares us is they've got a bunch of Eaton guys running the business. So, you know, they did such a bang up job at Eaton. They're doing just as well at Southwire. So,
Oh, boy.
yeah, but they're missing lead times. They're missing commitments. They're making new commitments, missing those commitments. It's not been fun. So,
I'll bet. Yeah. Well, thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.
yep.
So one more thing, guys, real quick. I forgot, and Dave reminded me. I appreciate it. And Tony, I think we talked about this in the past. CLCPA is it's a very large project up in upstate New York, coming somewhat to the end of the bidding EPC rounds here. I mean, it's upwards of a couple billion tagged to this project for National Grid alone. It's pretty incredible. So I'll send you more info on it. We're pretty tied in with project management on phase 1 and phase 2. And they had it boiled down to 4 EPCs, which are escaping me right now. As I said here, I know Leidos was up there. But just something to keep in mind. Our stuff will be run through the awarded EPC and subsequent contractor, because I think Grid's only doing conductor and steel as their direct buys. But it's pretty substantial. So I'll flip you, a little blurb on it. I think like I said, we've talked about it in the past. It's been pushed out so many times now with, government getting involved and subsequently messing it up. So that's all I have.
Thanks.
Okay, over to you, Tony. Anything you want to add to this?
Oh, yeah, they're all doing a great job. They're going to help me to achieve my 16 million.
Yeah.
Hopefully more, but I'll hedge at the 16.
So they're
Well,
gonna do
Appreciate everything
14
you
out of the
guys do
16.
for. What's
Tim
that?
said he's gonna take 2 away from you, Tony.
No, no, they're gonna do 14 out of your 16, right?
Well, no, we're gonna reevaluate yours in the middle of the year, because you're already be done.
Okay, the final comments, of course, are over to Mike, so we'll let him close it out. And thanks, everybody, for your attendance. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll just say, we continue to enjoy working with you guys. You guys have done phenomenal job helping us. Dave, what you pulled out with Eversource last year was miraculous. And so thanks for your time and attention today. Thanks for your work in general. And as I always like to say, please let us know how we can help you help us.
Yeah. So Mike, can you hear me all right? Can you
Yes.
hear me? All right. So a quick story, but it's a pretty funny one. So back in the day, Howard Industries used to have their sales meeting. They haven't had one since 2006. But me and Brian Curley were walking in line waiting for lunch, and we were one of the last 2 to eat. So we were right near Michael Howard. And Michael's asking us how we're enjoying the meeting. And I'm like, kind of tongue in cheek going, Michael, what always amazes me at this meeting is how many people just are a bunch of apple polishers, kissing your butt, because it just cracks me up. So Michael didn't say anything, just steadfast or whatever. So at the end of the meeting, this one rep, I don't even know who he was, gets up and so like, everybody in this room owes a debt of gratitude to Michael Howard. This man has done so much for each of our firms. And Michael Howard finds me in the room and goes, doing that. So I guess my point of this is to preface it saying like, no, thank you. You guys are the exact kind of lines that we want. Investing back into your company, listening to your reps, not just, running roughshod over them. We do feel valued. Our opinions feel valued. The team that you put together is phenomenal. And the growth that you guys are putting out, like hiring folks and getting the job done, it really is. It's great to see. I'm really, really happy for you guys, and we're all happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well then I guess we'll see you later.
Okay.
All right. Sounds
Thanks,
like
Say a
everyone.
prayer we don't get frozen in over here.
yeah, that's coming this weekend up here.
You Southern boys, are you ready for that?
No, of course not.